Senate Bill 1398, a bill relating to coal combustion residuals unit closure permit evaluation.
The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surovell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill pass and speaking to the bill.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, this bill has to do with coal ash. And you might have been reading a lot about coal ash in the paper over about the last 18 months. It's because we have a whole bunch of new rules that the EPA has mandated on Virginia that we have to implement here in the state. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the problem, here in Virginia, and then talk about what this bill does. Coal ash is basically what's left over after coal's burned. We've been burning it in Virginia for years. And basically what utilities have been doing historically is they take it out back and they've been dumping it in a pond so it doesn't blow around. A lot of these ponds are located right next to our water bodies, our rivers, our bays. There's actually one that sits right in the middle of the old channel of the James River down in Chesterfield. The problem is coal ash, when you put it in touch with water, it leaches out lead, boron, hexavalent chromium, mercury, all kinds of nasty stuff, which ain't very good for your complexion. And it's actually been getting out and getting into our groundwater. It's been getting into our rivers and our streams. We have 6 sites in Virginia. To see if an idea of how close this is or how it affects the people you represent, we have Possum Point, which is up in Dumfries on the Potomac River. We have Bremo Bluff, which is in Palmyra. It's in Buckingham County. We have a site in Chesterfield on the James River. So we have 2 sites in the James. There's another site down on the Elizabeth River, which is the Chesapeake site. Chesapeake site's actually interesting. There's an entire power plant built on an island of coal ash with a coal ash pond in the middle of the coal ash island, and there's an entire golf course built on top of coal ash that nobody wants to own anymore. And then there's also 2 sites out in southwest Virginia, Glen Lynn and Clinch River, which are in Glen Lynn and Carbo. There were basically 2 massive spills in the United States, one in Tennessee and one which we know about that came through Virginia a couple years ago. One's a Superfund site, and the other one cost over $1 billion to clean up. And due to those spills, those pond breakages, the EPA says that we have to do something to close down these ponds. We're not allowed to store it in water anymore. So the DEQ is trying to come up with a way to figure out how to close these ponds down. In order to do that, you have to get 2 permits. You have to get a water permit to get all this water out, and you have to get a waste permit if you want to leave it in place and landfill it. DEQ has been struggling with it, I think. In North Carolina, Georgia, and South Carolina, they've started to do a lot of recycling. And in Virginia, we haven't really looked at that yet. In North Carolina, they're also doing what's called clean closure, which is digging it up and hauling it away and putting it in a modern landfill. And actually, a lot of North Carolina's ash is coming to Virginia. It's coming to Amelia County. That's where most of it's going. So what this bill basically does is it says that before the Department of Environmental Quality can issue any permanent waste permit on a coal ash dump, they have to go through certain steps. Number 1, they have to ask Dominion, and by the way, this bill only applies to any coal ash ponds that are in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, which is only Dominion. The 2 APCO ponds are on the New River. So what has to happen is Dominion has to do an analysis of water pollution and how to fix water pollution, number 1. Number 2, they have to do an assessment of whether they can recycle any of this coal ash. Number 3, they have to evaluate the possibility of clean closure, that is digging it up and moving it. Number 4, they have to do an analysis of whether or not any of these ponds are subject to having problems due to hurricanes or floodings or other natural disasters, because they are all very low right next to rivers and water bodies. And lastly, they have to take a really hard look at recycling. And once they've done that, they give all that information to DEQ, then DEQ is allowed to issue a permit. And it's very important because this will ensure that we do make the right decision. I want to say really quick also, I know there's been some concern about whether or not this is sort of part of the public narrative that demonized coal. And I want to make clear that this is not. It's not that at all. I was talking with the commissioner of VDOT the other day, and he pointed out to me that coal ash, that about 10 years ago, they discovered that the use of coal ash in concrete mixtures has enhanced Virginia's concrete significantly. They made it into this high-performance concrete, which they think lasts a lot longer than our existing concrete. The problem is we don't have enough coal ash in Virginia to meet our needs, and we're actually importing it from China, Kazakhstan, and other states instead of using our coal ash that we have here in Virginia. And so I think this bill is a good bill because it will force us to take a hard look as to whether or not we can use our coal ash here in Virginia, recycle it, make jobs in Virginia, clean the environment in Virginia, start using our coal ash in Virginia to build our roads and our schools. And you can also make concrete block out of it. Mr. President, I also just want to thank Senator Marsden, Senators Chase Stanley, and the chairman who have been working with me on this issue for about a year now Water quality is a bipartisan issue. I've had a lot of sportsmen, a lot of guys who fish, who boat, who swim in these rivers contact me. People who earn their living on the river contact me about this because they're concerned. I think this is a good step to make sure we make the right decision for the next 100 years in Virginia before we bury this stuff in the ground. Again, move the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall Senate Bill 1398 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? If any senators desire to change their votes, the clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 29, noes 11.
Ayes 29, noes 11. The bill passes.